So today's theme is variance and orbits. Orbits, the orbits of planets in the solar system. Not concentric orbit, a single line going like this, but successive orbits. The first ring, the second ring, the third ring, the fourth ring, the fifth ring. So in my incubative reflections, I have identified 5 orbits of linkages for every variant. Let us take the case of a pencil. The first orbit is the most visible, that thing itself. Let's say this is not a pencil, but let's say a red pencil. So any variant, when we take it for analysis, I said particularly, I hope you remember that variant, invariant, variation framework must be applied with the mindset of variant, variation, invariant. It is not a rigid framework. I said that this pencil, because we can take the color alone as a variant. That is why. So right now we are taking, let us say, kind of a composite variant, which is a pencil. So this, whatever is sensible by the 5 senses, or let's say basically 2 senses in this case, maybe 3 senses, that means the visual sensitivity and the touch sensitivity and perhaps the smell. We are not able to get the smell of it, but definitely a dog can. But let us say the visual and touch sensitivity, or forget about touch sensitivity, by the visual sensitivity of about this particular pencil, whatever is identified, those properties or those sub-variants, okay, are at the first orbit. I hope you are aware that we are discussing a methodology only, a framework. So what are the subvariants? Whatever is visible. So it's red color, it has a certain design which includes its shape basically, and it has a setting meaning that lead material inside and a wooden round covering, 2 pieces pasted together, and then the color. Okay. These are the subvariants of this variant pencil at the first orbit. The first orbit comprises attributes or characteristics or properties of a given thing in itself. Okay. Which are mostly noticed by almost anybody. At the second orbit, this pencil is being held by 2 fingers of my hand. At the second orbit, this pencil is in the focus of your visual attention. At the second orbit, light rays are falling on this pencil. light rays emitted by the bulbs in this room, ambient light is falling on this pencil. These are all more or less physical. These are all more or less physical. Physical. But nevertheless facts. Okay. It is second orbit because items in the second orbit are variants. This hand is a variant. The light is a variant. You are looking at it as a variant. Okay. At the second orbits, the variants that are linked with the attributes or characteristics or properties of the first orbit. These are all very arbitrary. I am just giving you a framework. You can decide what is in the first orbit, what is in the second orbit, what is in the third orbit, depending upon the FIR, depending upon your purpose of reflective, creative, analytic observation about a thing or an idea or an event or an episode or a phenomenon, including your own mental phenomenon. That will come a little later, mental phenomenon, which is the more important in a different sense for genius and self. So what could be, from this line of thinking, what could be at the third orbit? Because every orbit is farther away by the very definition of orbit. Yes, like the first ring, then the second ring, then the third ring, then the fourth ring. So what all could be attributed in the third orbit?
Person holding that.
Yeah, the person. Because the hand, which is linked with the pencil at the second orbit, is linked with the person. Similarly, the you, your eyes, belong to you. And the light rays belong to the bulb emitting that. See? And at the third level, like in the case of second level, the variants are linked to items in the second level. Then what could be at the fourth orbit?
The place, the setting, outer setting.
Yeah, when the range of materials, range of variance in each of these orbits become correspondingly expansive, because the variance possible of these hands are much less compared to the variance possible for the person. Who, which person, what person, etc. And also at that fourth level, what kind of thoughts, ideas or imaginations or perceptions or reflections that are going through in the mind of that person whose hand is holding the pencil. They are also linkaged. Or they could also be linkaged. Even if, perhaps, when you look at the pencil, perhaps you must be wondering who created that pencil, who created the color of this pencil, which company made this pencil, okay, fell down. Where was it purchased, and so on and so forth. Somebody would be having a mind, in the mind setting, an imagination of once upon a time in class 3 in a government school in the village, a young, a little girl gifting a piece of a pencil when I lost my pencil. That memory could be linkage. Or rather, that memory was triggered at the time when you looked at the pencil. At this point of time. Do you understand the flexibility required in applying the variant? Because everything is a variant. Every thought is a variant, every imagination is a variant, every memory is a variant, every idea is a variant, every moment is a variant. Now we may have had some other memories. By the way, what was your memory? Or you could be just listening to this and trying to comprehend this. But when they ask you, you can linkage. See, you can get the point. Upon investigation or upon reflection, you will be able to linkage just the visual of a pencil to a beautiful range or a vast range of incidents and episodes and beautiful emotions, or let's say so, beautiful emotions. Let us look at only the beautiful things. One of you may write a piece of poetry on a pencil. One of you may write a short story on a pencil. Or in which a pencil is a critical turning point, or a pencil gives the twist. In case of pencil. And at the fifth orbit, all the possible probable things that can be linkaged with the pencil can be included by your choice. This is a tentative framework, in the sense that there must be 5 orbits for every variant. What all variants you will place in these successive orbits is your choice according to the requirement of a given point of time. This may be applicable when you write a piece of poetry or a piece of philosophy or a piece of short story or fiction and things like that. This is at the level of creativity. Rather, this variation, invariant linkage orbit framework is particularly required for the researcher, for the thinker, for the philosopher, for the creative artist, as well as for a public speaker. For example, in my case, I told you, I never had to prepare for a speech to be made before any audience. Some 4 years back, I had to give a keynote address. You know, keynote address, the most critical address given by a special speaker for mostly for a conference. And I had to give the keynote address. Their professors were from 1 or 2 from US, 1 or 2 from Canada, and about 25 from Southampton University in England. Then a lot of professors from about 4 or 5 management institutes in the country, and then students also. So the topic was, of course, my concept only. I don't give talk about others' concepts. Mystic leader, my concept. I did not do any preparation. But on the spot of 45 minutes, I gave a very orderly, very systematic point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of a brilliant talk. Every sentence can be straight away printed into a book. That talk is in the YouTube. And I have given talks to, as I told you, that commandos, 350 commandos of the Special Force. Then every time. So that I was able to do it because of this variation, invariant linkage, orbit, perspective. Because anything can be connected to anything. That particular pencil could be connected to the entire universe. It could be connected to particle physics. It could be connected to a lonely tree standing alone. It could be connected to a woodcutter. It could be connected to a small entrepreneur who makes pencils. It could be connected to a poor lady who is collecting wood for her cooking her rice. It could be connected to the dream of a little girl in a rural village. It could be connected to a small shopkeeper in a remote village. It could be connected to the balance sheet of a big company like Faber-Castell or whatever. It could be connected to the brilliant memories of a girl who makes pencil drawings. It could be connected to a beautiful romantic love story. When I was doing my degree program, when somebody asked me, I would write a short story within 1 hour. Very much less editing. Give me anything, give me just a word, I will write a story on that.
It's 22 hours.
And so I just give this kind of a framework and examples from my own experiences. And if you remember in our talks, how effortlessly I can bring in any example or any metaphor or any parallel logic. So practice this for a few days. Take your project work and actually write the variations possible for that variant. Like what all variations are possible for that pencil. It could be cut several times and its length will gradually come down to a small one. Then it would be thrown away into a dustbin or a waste basket. From there it goes where nobody knows. That is the fifth orbit. Nobody would see an abandoned pencil, I don't know. I wonder where all the pencils and pens in the world vanish, you know. I don't remember having seen a pencil piece anywhere. Did it vanish into thin air? I don't know. But I remember in my n number of visits to various places and various homes, especially of the poor people, especially little girls, in a small casket, they would keep some 3, 4, 5 small pencils, you know. And it was all beautiful times. And I remember having seen such a casket in which there were pencil pieces as well as broken pieces of her glass bangles. Oh, it was a moment of much beauty for me. I was surprised about the magical magnificence of that little 5 or 6-year-old girl who loved that broken pieces of 2 or 3 bangles which her uncle had gifted her after visiting from a temple. I asked her why did she keep it. I don't remember the exact answer. I don't know whether she answered. She just looked at me. And I also looked at every piece of that, and with such an enthusiasm she showed me those pieces. They were pieces of glass bangles of different time periods. She had even 2, 3 black rubber rings also, which she was wearing when she was a little baby. I don't know where she has been, I don't know where she has gone, of course. Because in her mind, she could see the linkages at varied orbits. That was the nature of her mind. I don't know whether somebody trained it or anything. When we talked about the orbits of variance, we talked mostly about the what you call futuristic orbits. Of course, I mentioned the orbits of its history, like that particular tree from which a real tree which was cut by an axe or a mechanical what you call saw, brought into the factory on a truck or a whatever wagon, shaped by the lathe or cut into various pieces, then further shaped by lathe and made into 2 hemispherical pieces with a groove inside on one side, and then certain materials were prepared to form the lead or the writing aspect, and with very advanced, and nowadays with the robots are assembling such pencils in Faber and whatever advanced brands, and how that lead is placed in between that grooved polished piece of wood, and how meticulously the colorists test the color combination. Because every time they combine colors, because primary colors they don't use. So there is a technician, there is an efficient technician who combine the colors so that the previous batch and the present batch will have the same color. And actually I saw a video. Then I wondered who notices those colors, okay? You know? I mean color variations with such a precision. Not from bottle green to lesser green. That exact configuration, it is tested. Then also I wondered for whom these technicians, these highly creative innovators and thinkers and artists are working. With such a precision, spending such a lot of time and nowadays most precision equipment. For whom? For the majority, the mediocrity, you just buy it and they don't even look at it, I suppose. For whom they make it with such a precision, I used to wonder. Or I wonder. What is their expectation of the appreciation of an audience? Because at that time it is at the zero orbit. There is an orbit or zero orbit when a given variant is under preparation, which I call the zero orbit. At that zero orbit, there is such a lot of care. So what is the anticipation? What is the expectation? What is the hope? What is the great dream of the designer about the person who buys that pencil? I wonder what if that designer see that pencil is being tortured by careless handling and thrown away. Oh, what would be the pain of that person? I feel like having tears in my eyes when I think about that, actually. That will enable us to look at even a pencil as a live aspect, which is live. Because every live thing undergoes variation. Variation is the evidence and proof of life, the vital force of the universe operating. So this is, pencil is the example which you are taking. Further examples will be much more complex, that you can work out, from simple to the complex. So at the zero orbit level of a variant, rather, the preparation level of a variant, or the incubation level of a variant, at one point of time there is an illumination. I use the word preparation, incubation, illumination. These three are critical concepts in the classical theory of creativity developed by one of the pioneering researchers called Graham Wallas, Graham Wallas. The three critical steps for any creative process: preparation, incubation, and third, illumination, or otherwise also called inspiration. Further to that, there are two more steps called action and verification. Action meaning you, after the moment of inspiration, the person get into the activity of working out that inspired idea or inspired object. And then verification, that means testing it, because I told you, seldom a poem happens in the very first instance in its finalized form. That is called verification. Editing and rechecking and correcting and things like that. So a variant comes into this world after all these five processes. There is varied levels of preparation. As I briefly narrated in the case of a pencil. If one person is making a pencil by hand, he would go out into the jungle or the forest, pick out the most conducive, most suitable kind of wood, then at an appropriate moment he would cut it, okay, remove its branches and bark, and make it in a convenient piece, carry it on his shoulder, bring it into his small workplace near his house, then shape it with a lathe, lathe or a sharp, what you call, what is the English word for woolly? What is that sharp thing which the carpenters use?
Chisel.
Vinay? Chisel.
Chisel.
Huh?
Chisel.
Okay.
Chisel.
By which we will cut into pieces and shape it. And then he would identify that particular material from some certain part of slate material or whatever material and shape it and put it in the pieces, because it has to be two pieces together. It is not easy to put a hole into that cylinder and then insert this thing. So it will be always two pieces, and there will be a central groove where that lead is fixed and the other two pieces are pasted upon. And then he again looks at it and shapes it, and then brings some natural colors, some paste or pigment of some flowers or leaves, and apply it. See, More or less same process is happening in the most automated system also. Rather, each variant has its own history, its own marvelous magical history of being undergoing preparation and incubation. That means the time spent by the worker on shaping it. And illumination, that is the moment when it is finally achieving its form, then testing it and verifying its efficiency or efficacy. That is a variant. And that variant is made for further application where its existence is manifested by the variations it is capable of enabling for somebody, for something else. Every variant is for some other variants. If some other variants never get linkage to a given variant, then the existence of that variant is almost empty. And when other variants are interacting with the given variant, the properties of that variant is being used, and being used, that variant fulfills its purposes and vanishes. And that particular variant, it's a pencil held by a highly creative person, a painter or a drawing master, or an angelistic individual. A certain individual would take it use it with all kinds of care. With it he will do or she will do beautiful paintings or beautiful answers on the paper, which will have its own linkages. See? And finally one day it disappears or it is thrown away by the same variance. The variance that got linkage with the given variant will work out the dissipation of the variant also. Variant by in itself may not get dissipated unless interacted with the very slow forces of the other energy fields of the planet Earth. But by interacting with other variants, its life becomes affected. Depending upon the kind of variance, its life can bloom and evolve, or like Sarah said the last time, get deteriorated and dissipated. Now if you look at the human being as the variant, you can easily identify the preparation involved at the zero level. Everywhere it is various. The variation in the mood of the man and the woman. The variation happens in the physiology and the morphology, rather the body and the physiological processes, variation. Because with that variation only, sexual process can happen. Where an invariant of romantic attachment can operate, possibly. Or an instinctual energy would operate, possibly. No, definitely. Otherwise this variation is impossible. If the instinctual energy or the organic energy does not work as an invariant driver, these variations or variants cannot operate. and in the time and in the subsequent process, design and setting, varied actions are happening. Varied linkages are happening. On one side, and then these are all things known to you. You are looking at it from the angle, from the camera, from the vantage point of the variant, the variation, invariant, orbit, linkage perspective, that's all. Which will have its own advantage, where phenomenon and things become clear. Because variation is the most closest to reality, closest name to report of the reality involved. And even before the arrival of the fertilized sperm, the so-called womb, the uterus makes its own preparations. Rather, every 14 days or 15 days, the uterus starts its preparation, reaching its culmination within another 5, 6, 7, 8 days. In order to receive implantation of a fertilized egg, there's a whole lot of incubation happening in the uterus. The entire body varies or triggers variations which never happened before. New hormones are triggered. Much faster pace, because all these are to be completed within about 30, 40, 50, 60 days. That incubation for total of so-called 280 days, and then there is the moment of illumination or inspiration, where again by certain invariant forces trigger various hormones by which the so-called womb or uterus makes definite variations which it has undergone never before. So, every human being in the world should be aware of this, so that they can understand the worth of their own entity. What is the kind of preparation and incubation and illumination happened at varied orbits, even before their birth. What all at zero level orbits contributed. Then they may understand, maybe again by their own term, just by a single word, what the so-called God, magic or whatever it is. That's a silly word by which all these things are compressed into 2-3 words. Actually required is an expansive view of the terrain, total terrain. Like we have to go to every part of the terrain. Rather than saying that I am in my house and in my estate. Then they will worship their own entity. Then they will really realize that they are a creation of the nature process. Or at least then they will realize how the so-called their own God prepared a whole lot of things, whole lot of orbits of linkages in their making. Then they become automatically inspired to verify into, like in the conventional Graha-Vilas theory, by that illumination point, by that inspiration point, that little orbit one level pencil or the entity comes out. For further variations, expansions, for blooming, for linkaging, or for being engaged with other wonderful variants so that its fullness, the so-called fully functional human being it becomes at a certain point of time. At the fifth orbit, it cannot happen in the first year or first few years. It cannot happen in the first orbit, in the second orbit. It will be going to the school, to the masters, to the gurus. Then at the third orbit it will develop all kinds of knowledge and understanding and learn varied activities and whatever. You know. And that at that fourth level, what kind of linkages that the individual will develop? Would they stop at the second orbit of getting a postgraduate degree and doing the job? Even in doing the job, at what all orbits they will evolve? Will they continue at the same appointed level? Or just getting promoted as in government offices by number of years? But I don't think everybody gets a compulsory promotion now in the government office. There is no performance appraisal. Everybody will not become.
Yeah.
Everybody gets promotion in government office.
Yeah, there could be opportunity for that.
Everyone.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay.
They may get or may not get.
That's what I
There
said.
could be opportunity, yeah.
All right. Okay. Anyway, whether opportunity or whatever it is, so that individual also should evolve into varied orbits at the work level, at the work is of course for survival, but there also one should go achieve that fifth level where one becomes in tune with the mission and vision of the organization, or mission and vision and philosophy of the work role. A wonderful teacher or a wonderful doctor or a wonderful administrator or a wonderful manager or a wonderful leader. A great leader. That's called a great leader, or that's what I call a mystic leader. Or if not in leadership position, a mystic individual. And that's our topic. Because other things we are already in role positions. We are not doing a leadership training program or a creativity training program or mindset analysis. We are precisely focused on genius in self, like genius in filmmaking or genius in poetry or genius in physics or genius in one's own entity, looking at the entity as a separate phenomenon by which the consciousness is likely to get detached and to get a real bird's eye view of the entity of oneself during that process. And what all linkages, at what all orbits. See, normal people, their orbit of their self is just encapsulated in a blind concept of so-called religion. Okay, God created me, okay, go to the church or go to the temple or go to the mosque and pray, finished. That orbit is over. Then go to the classroom or to the workplace or to the society or to the shop, buy things, do things, construct house, etc., etc. Once in a while go there. And with that they completely believe and lifelong they will go and with that belief. Because that belief is in their mindset, so that's okay. But that is only in the mindset. That's only a mindset. A religion is only a mindset, certain ideology. It is never an experience, it is never a reality. It is never a truth. Because religion did not create that being. There was no preparation by the religion and ideology in the romantic mind of the man and the woman, then they were set for a sexual activity. There was no religion in the love making. There was no religion for the sexual organs or the physiological process or the anatomical process or the hormonal process. There was no religion involved in the 280 days of embryonic development. There was no religion involved in the process of delivery. Okay, there could be a God, if they want to believe it that way. But that's again a capsule. You have to understand in which way the God operated at least. So-called spirituality, spirit, that's why spirituality also is a corrupt term. Forget about all these terms. Looking at it from the variant, variation, invariant, orbit, linkage perspective, that entity which was formed by so many linkages of so many forces, including the day of the so-called wedding ceremony of a man and a woman, which included the definite moment of an inspiration for appreciation for the female body in the mind of the man, and the readiness on the part of the female to accept the man, which are all facts, F-A-C-T-S, facts. And the direct organic process that happened continuously with all authenticity and genuineness and truthfulness by every cell of the body, every hormone system, and all that. So that force must be that all of that has been culminated into that moment of inspiration. So that should be definitely worth investigation. Because only that material, that organic process, design setting only generated that consciousness, that awareness, or so-called mind. And that mind should continuously vary, or that consciousness should evolve. That also should evolve. That also should undergo preparation. That also should undergo incubation. And that also should come across a moment of inspiration or illumination, and it should verify its tuning with whatever that forces by which it was originally formed. Of course, it is a choice, otherwise also nothing will happen, no problem. But this is a choice. As I told you, it was the choice consciously taken or unconsciously happened in that little girl wearing a so-called petticoat at that time. You know, a little lean girl in a small hut. No, the small hut, of course, it had 2 rooms. And she had kept that casket inside the hole of the wall. Okay. In the dark room, there was no electric current. Daytime, even in the daytime it was dark. And she, with such an enthusiasm, she went up and picked up that, what you call, casket, and brought to me into the front veranda, open veranda, and showed me, see, I have a red color bangle piece, a green color bangle piece, a black color bangle piece. What was that moment of revelation? Like a great artist who would show his film to an international audience. Her ability to feel thrilled about that. What is that property? What is that power of variation? What is that power of expansion? Everything is a variation. That is that ideal so-called human being. Don't get mystified by the statistical majority. Be mystified by great entities and great examples that you may see in the form of Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or Saraswati or Parvati or Tripura Sundari or whichever. I just gave examples of names. Or of your own conceptualization, okay? Now coming back to the point, these are all linkages. And when we think about variant, variation, invariant, orbit linkages, every subject matter has been developed accordingly. Whether it is physics or chemistry or medicine or literature or whatever. Even a dance, even a music piece, it starts with choosing a particular rudiment of a raga. So the music creator or the music director chooses that raga piece and then works on the variations of that raga piece into 4 lines or 12 lines. Similarly, a building construction begins by just creating, putting a stone foundation, stone first, then the whatever, brick by brick by brick, it is varied and evolved into a full building, so that others can be, other variants can be engaged efficiently and suitably and comfortably. So everywhere we can see. The entire universe can be explained by the variant, variation, invariant, orbit, linkage perspective. And little more things are there, we will bring in gradually. So how to get into that invariant? That's another question, another chapter. Another question is how to adopt the variance of a genius level of mind, intellect, spirit. Which depends upon the extent of variation, the dynamics of variation. On one hand, and on the other hand, by that dynamic eccentricity of variation, with what all other variants, a certain variant get linkaged. And that is the essence of all creativity. All creations, all innovations, all modifications, all discovery and all inventions are nothing but variations and linkages. Which we have done before. To what extent we could see the variant or variations possible in interpreting a small parable. I have 11 point single space 274 pages on a parable which is only 3 paragraphs, The Master Thief. I could write more than that because linkages are at second orbit hundreds of linkages, at third orbit another thousands of linkages, and at the fourth orbit another 10,000, because as you expand the orbits the number of linkages increase. Like the hand is touching the pencil and that hand is linked with the human being. And what are the linkages of that human being? What was the intent of that human being in taking that pencil? Was it to write a beautiful love letter? Or to write what you call chili, salt or vegetable, a list of things to be purchased? Or to be packaged into a beautiful cover to be gifted to a second standard child in the neighborhood. In a way, these are all kind of items in a primary creativity test also. What are the different uses of a bricks? In which all ways you can connect a brick with a rose flower? That kind of items are there in the classical creativity test of Paul Torrance. PIULTORRENC, one of the classic researches in creativity measurement, which I also used in my first PhD thesis, which I found, I told you about a small story. I almost finished my, went of the thesis, but before that, one day I met a group of so-called creative people in Kerala state, a few poets and short story writers, and I was also a small-time short story writer. Not small-time, my stories appeared in the topmost magazine in Kerala state. So they asked me, what are you doing? I said, I am doing research in creativity. Oh, what is that in your bag? I said, some questionnaires to creativity test. Oh, I see. And one guy got very fascinated. We were having a meeting at a Muscat Hotel in Trivandrum. No, they were going for that. I was not a part, of course, never. But I also just accompanied them. And he tried to do it. And he could not proceed beyond 10 or 12 items. It was a time test. We had to finish certain items within 40 minutes. He could not do it. Then only I was surprised. A creative person is not able to do that. And it was a test to be given to 10th standard students in connection with my PhD thesis. At that point I decided, variation happened in me. I am not going to use this test anymore. Which I told to my guide, and he got wild with me, and he said, what the hell you are thinking that PhD thesis is some new creativity and invention, it is a training in methodology. And that's what you see in all the beautiful romantic lyrics. Penne nin kavilil kandu mattoru tamarakkaadu. That's one of the classic little lyric. Tamarappu nee dure kandu mohichu. That means the girl got fascinated by a lotus flower in a pond. Appol tazhe njan neenti chennu, whatever. And after that, when I brought that lotus flower to you, I see a jungle of lotus on your cheeks. What a brilliant, what a marvelous visualization. I see a jungle of lotus flowers on your cheeks. For a normal person, sometimes he may say she got blushed. That's all. Her cheeks got reddish, or she had a beautiful smile. But for the poetic variation, it is Tamarakkaadu. I didn't have to even give that lotus to you. Because in her mind, the linkage perceptions are at that level. See, when I told him, see, look at that lotus flower, could you get it for me? Immediately he jumps into the water, goes to the flower and brings it. He suddenly triggers a beautiful rain of thrill in her mind. The mind gets instantly engaged with the blooming of that love. Lotus becomes only a medium. Rather, that romantic boy was able to give her that kind of an experience. That is what is missing in modern men, who do not have anything other than A plus B the whole squared in their minds. That's why there was one more item in another questionnaire in creativity. That is, have you ever fallen in love? It was an item in a questionnaire. Because a creative mind will inevitably, very likely, or almost inevitably, not that he may marry her and all that, because it is dynamic variation of sensitivity. So that sensitivity gets varied by the perception of a whatever suitable, elegant, beautiful girl. Which will prepare his mind, which will compel him to incubate, which will provide a moment of illumination that I must get this girl. And he goes into action and he ends up in verification. That means getting her with him. See? The variation process is to see. So think about variations induced. When you read a wonderful fiction, wonderful piece of poetry, when you listen to a wonderful piece of music, or when you create a piece of music, or when you create a wonderful piece of food item, or when you create, you experience an expansion of your self-perception to further orbits. That's why it is told that you need creativity to evolve. Or you have to do things by which you get evolved. Either you need creativity to evolve, or you have to do things by which you evolve. Like great reading of philosophies and great fiction and great poetry, and go into unique locations and spaces of this planet Earth. Looking at the butterflies and the flowers and the plants and the trees and the snowy mountains and the beautiful rains and rainbows. That's why human beings' sensitivity should be exposed to the marvels of the nature. Because it is infinite variation, great exhibition, supreme, sublime exhibition is going on all around. The senses get varied by seeing the mountainous mists and undergoing the drizzling drops of the rain. Walk in the rains. Walk alone in the midnight. There is even a definition of creative person, that the guy who walks alone in the midnight. Because he is completely exposed only to that nature process. With infinite variations, with unmanageable stimuli all around, in the vast sky and the vastness all around. So that the senses get varied, and as I told in the beginning, so that the neuronal networks get triggered, and it also gets varied, and new orbits and linkages get developed in the actual anatomy of the brain. And varying, finally it will reach a point of no return where you will definitely, inevitably come across that final blooming of that lightning rose, the you, or that operating consciousness. Just because consciousness is getting varied by these kind of exposures, varied, expanded, and it will reach its final orbit where it becomes yoga-fied, united with the vast consciousness outside. It is at the fifth level. Because variants are to be varied. Our power of attention is a variant, our power of conceptualization is a variant, our power of reflection is a variant, our power of imagination is a variant, our visualization is a variant, our intuition is a variant. Experiment with varying those things. either by great reading or by reflection or by discussions. So we have reached the ultimate. That's all. You have to visualize like a ripple. Different orbits varying, expanding. And finally the end of the ripple touching the shores. All right? So variant, variation, dynamic variation, linkages, orbits. So expand your orbits, expand your linkages. All right, Sarah. Tintin, where are you? Are you there? All right.
I'm here, sir.
All right, wonderful. Arjun, Christabel, Vinay, Parvati, Navin, any. So, reflect upon this. In parable of the one. Yeah. So what all once he must have tried, So doing one thing again and again and again and again and again and again, that also is a variation, invisible variation. Like a single drops of water falling onto the same place of a hard rock, after a few time, after a few duration, there will be a dip, there will be a hole. So that single movement of the hand, of whatever, how come that boy evolved from doing a single stroke with a pencil to something else? At what point of time that single drop of drawing a stroke got varied into similar movement with something else? With that varied practices, or so-called practice, it's a stupid term, that varied drops of that action, at what point of time, at what turning point, it got engaged with that invariant of that moment, where his moment becomes a powerful lightning force by which a huge boulder gets cut. More or less the same way, one of your single dialogues should cut the block, cut the puzzle that disturbs an individual. What precise stroke of language is required to convert the perception of a person into something gigantic. Wait for that appropriate moment. Once I happened to see how a samurai sword is prepared by the great craftsmen of Japan. May not be modern Japan. Of course, it is a film short, so it is almost modern Japan. The amount of preparation, that means amount of variance they try. They go and pick up the choicest kind of iron ores from wherever. With the linkage of such an intent and dedication and love and commitment and whatsoever, linkage will come separately in some other discussion. Linkages are critical because linkages only induce variations. Linkages only worked behind the creation of a zygote. The linkage, the romantic linkage between a man and a woman, the organic linkage of the body, the linkage between the sperm and the egg, the linkage of the correct hormones produced by the pituitary gland or whatever, and similarly there must be the linkage of the mind setting, the mental process of the mother also, which is the modern world, which 99.9% of the human beings just do not understand. Had they read some of the classics, it could be known. Because there are clear-cut principles laid out by Sarngadara, one of the rishis of ancient Ayurveda, about the ways in which a pregnant woman should be taken care of. There are clear-cut ideas of what kind of place, what kind of a room she should live, what kind of pictures she should see, what kind of dialogue she should listen to, what kind of people with whom she should interact, what kind of water she should bath, and etc., etc., etc. So these are all directly related to the so-called cerebral process, which will have definitely linkages with the ever-varying embryo. The fertilized egg is in a continuous variation, perhaps every second. Am I right, Vinay? Possibly every second. And every variation is incorporating linkages, not only organic linkages, energy linkages from the body of the mother. If you look at the statistics of the world, there's a definite increase in the number and frequency of actions of unethical, aggressive, arrogant, quarrelsome people. Because they are all born in a womb where the processes were mutually conflicting, the linkages were very conflicting. Linkages were improper. The mother body was undergoing anomalous variations. In fact, in the same treatise it is written at what point of time the man should meet the woman. Because the planetary positions are all the time varying, the energy fields around are all the time varying. Therefore, for example, in the case of a king, in order to have a child, he should sexually interact with the Pattamaharishi or the queen on a particular date and time decided by the palace astrologers. Because at that time, wonderful linkages of the planetary process and the energy field of the environment were operating. would say how somebody happens to become a so-called Jesus or a Buddha or Krishna or Shiva or Rabindranath Tagore is by the coincidence, like a lottery, coincidentally, because n number of sexual intercourses are happening. So by sheer statistical coincidence, when a certain man and a woman were having their sexual activity approximately closer to the correct timing. So wherever he or she was born, without any apparent reason, they would become wonderful. So I just entered into the concept of linkages. That we will do in some other time. So coming back to this variance and variation. So variation is dance. Variation is music. For example, if someone asks me what is so-called creativity, we can say just by an example of variation, which I have done. Maybe Naveen must have heard my explanation. I have done this to mostly Hindi audience with a very well-known song. So somebody can say, क्या करेगा भाई मेरा प्रेमी को देखा नहीं है, बहुत दिन हो गया, मैं परेशान हो गया. That's a normal, that is at orbit one level. He may talk 2, 3, 4 sentences also. With a little more varied language. क्या करूँ, क्या, I don't know that much of Hindi, क्या करेगा सजनी, बालम तो आया नहीं है. उनको खोज करके मेरा आंखें परेशान हो गया. Little more further in prose. उसको खोज के मैं आंखें परदेसी बन गया. See, my eyes become a what you call wanderer, Naveen? Paradesi. Okay. My eyes have become alien to myself.
Yeah.
That's the next level of variation. Further, someone who is capable of further variation, who wants to associate with a different level of orbit, from second orbit to sudden third orbit. So he will say little more poetically, क्या करूं सजनी आए न बालम, खोज रही है पिया परदेसी अखिया. This little more advanced variation of prose. Then someone who is capable of what called melodious variation, he would sing, क्या करूं सजनी आए न बालम, खोज रही है पिया परदेसी अखिया, खोज रही है पिया परदेसी अखिया, आए न बालम. Idea is the same. Theme is the same. But variations affected upon it. That is what is music. Movement of the body. A dancer, there is a genius dancer sitting there. A dancer does not create a movement which is not possible with the human body. It is all available. Choosing certain variants, applying certain type and pattern of variation, a certain dance form is created. And there itself is so marvelous. There is a variation of body movements which we call the ballet, variation of body movements called the Odissi, variation of body movements called the Kathak, variations of body movements called Bharatanatyam, variations of body movements called Mohiniyattam. And now there is a variation of movement called what you call rock dance. So what is it? Which also is very complex, not that easy of course. So variant is the same body and its movements, available movements. But that variations have been very applied with variation of imagination. See? Get the point now. One thing alone varying cannot create evolution or orbital variation. Orbital variation also is required. So, apply variation to whatever you have understood, whatever you have grasped from the basic concepts. They are all variants only. The concept of variant is a variant which can be varied. Concept of variation is a variant which can be varied. Concept of invariant is a variant which can also be varied. Invariant is that which you chooses to be invariant, like a controlled variable in an experiment. So see that every piece of your expression, even if you write an ordinary email, even if you write a message in a so-called WhatsApp, do it with your attention. Don't make it like anybody can do. Do not wait. Like somebody is waiting to have the finest dialogue when he meets the Prime Minister or when he meets a bride or a bridegroom. You can be always like that. So you have to be in a certain orbit. See? The very you can be in the first orbit, or in the second orbit, or in the third orbit, or in the fourth orbit, or in the fifth orbit where everything is equal for you, where you will have the mind of the no mind. Where you will be in tuning with the so-called original mind, or the original self, or the Zen mind. Okay.